Hey everybody, welcome back to my shop. So today isn't going to be a very exciting video. Basically I'm going to do kind of a simple repair to one of my daily drivers, and basically here it is. We'll just start right into it. So one of my dailies is a 1989 K5 Jibby, and this one needs a radiator. So I'll show you what's going on here. It has been seeping for a little bit, but started getting a lot worse. If I can get to focus there we go. So it's been leaking out of this hose fitting, but it's actually where the hose fitting is pressed into the radiator. So I'm gonna put a new radiator in it. The radiator is only about 3 years old. It's an OEM type replacement, not an OEM replacement, but it's an aftermarket radiator, but it's the copper brass style of the original one, which I prefer to do that or an all aluminum radiator. I hate the new plastic aluminum radiators. They just fail all the time, and I personally think they're junk. So on my own stuff, I usually try to replace everything with an aluminum radiator, and that's what we're gonna be doing now. I'll show you that one right here. So this time I'm gonna put a all aluminum replacement radiator in this. This was actually picked up by a local company, one of my distributors. It was actually a really good price. It wasn't really much more than the actual cheap plastic aluminum radiators, so I'm gonna give it a shot. You can spend a lot on aluminum radiator. You can spend anywhere from a couple $100 to $1,000 plus, and I try not to spend more than $300 or $400 on the radiators. This one was less than that. I'm gonna hopefully try it, and hopefully it works out for me. So, gonna get that in there. Start off by, you want to drain the radiator, the petcock's at the bottom, driver's side, and then start by undoing your upper and lower radiator hoses. There's the upper, lower's on the opposite side, the passenger side of the bottom. That'll end up draining out the rest of the coolant. Make sure you have a catch pan or something to put it in. So we'll do all these hoses too. Again, there's the one heater core supply hose, and then the other ones are the transmission cooler lines, the other two smaller lines. Undo those. And then fan shroud, just a couple bolts on the top, pop it off. And you don't usually, yeah, it is actually easier to do it that way. So you have, this one separates, which is really nice, designed by GM. So you have a couple bolts on each side of the fan shroud. And then you have the bolt here, and pop the fan shroud out, just lift it up off. And then you have access for your radiator. The radiator is pretty simple. Two 13mm bolts there, two 13mm bolts there. Those are your upper mount brackets. Pop those off, and then all you gotta do is lift that radiator out. Your radiator goes in, and reverse the process. Don't even have to take the fan clutch on this one, guys, like I said, because the fan shroud's well designed. It just comes off, it's a split piece. Just take the upper off and then put it back together. Fill it up with coolant. On these, I like to fill them up, not all the way. I'm gonna say I like to fill them up to about right here, about 4 inches down. What that does is it allows an airspace, so when it heats up, you don't have coolant gushing out of here, because usually what happens, if you fill them all the way up to the top, then what happens is you end up, with the motor heats up, it pushes a lot of the coolant out, and then you have a big mess. If you start out with about 4 or 5 inches down, start it up, let the motor heat up, circulate, and you'll know it'll circulate by it'll start dropping coolant fast. That's when you start filling it up, top it off, and then from there you can top it off to the height, and usually you can do it without having a big mess of coolant all over. If you have your levels just right and time it right. So I hope I made that sound okay. It didn't even really make sense to me in my head. But anyway, hopefully you got that. And drive it, test drive. I usually like to go a mile or two, come back, and then double check the coolant level. Usually if you do it this way, if you heat it up without the cap on and then go drive it, usually you won't have any more pressure on the system. So you can take the cap off without having to worry about it blowing up in your face. It's when you start a vehicle from cold, let it heat up, then it builds pressure, then you have a problem taking the cap off when it's when it's warm. So it's that. It's pretty easy repair. Book time on it's probably not much more than an hour. So I'm gonna get that done and in, and then I'll just come back with you guys and show you the new radiator after it's installed. So I will cut back after I get it in. Okay, so we got the radiator installed now. 2 issues, well, actually 3 issues. This is supposed to be a direct fit, and it's not. I had to do a couple modifications to make it fit. Not a big deal. It's actually kind of temporary till I get a new fan shroud, but it'll get the job done till I get a new fan shroud and get it down the road. And you'll see why I need a new fan shroud right here. So right here, the fan shroud's broken, been like that, so I do need a new shroud. But what I had to do is I had to make some small 1/2-inch standoffs and both sides here. And then also on the upper brackets, I had to weld a little extension piece right here because the rubber bushing that the radiator is supposed to sit into, it doesn't really fit anymore. So I just used some rubber pieces on both sides to hold it in place. Now, this is only temporary, mind you. I need to get some different bushings to hold the radiator. For the moment, like I said, this will get it down the road till I can get a better solution. But I mean, come on guys, this thing is 89 Jimmy. I mean, this thing is just kind of what I use once in a while as it kind of gets abused. So this isn't a show truck. It'll get the job done for the moment. I had to do the standoffs on it. Mainly, I'll show you over here. It's better to show you. So the standoffs are in place because right here where the light is, the shroud is really close to the radiator cores, and I didn't want it to rub, so it causes problems. So that is why I did the standoffs. So it'll help space the radiator shroud from the radiators, keep it from rubbing. And as far as the rest of it goes, it's kind of close, but the radiator isn't touching the core support. And now the radiator shroud is not touching the radiator. There is a small, we'll say a roughly 1/8-inch gap on both sides. So radiator should be good. It vibrates, shouldn't rub a hole in it. Other than that, it was a direct drop-in. So I don't even know the brand of this one. It says Champion Cooling Systems. Like I said, I just picked it up from a local distributor. I just wanted something quick, easy, cheap to get the Jimmy back on the road. I do have other vehicles to drive, but it's kind of my work vehicle. It's not even a work vehicle, but it's sentimental, okay? Anyway, so radiator's in. It'll be back on the road. I just got to fire it up, let the cooling system circulate. Probably have to add another 1/2 gallon or so of the green stuff to it. And well, it'll be back down the road till something else breaks on it. So I know this one wasn't exciting either. Like I said, I do a little bit of everything in my shop here and where I work at. I do a little bit of everything there. So sometimes I get some cool stuff to work on. Sometimes it's just the regular old beater. So again, hopefully we'll be getting one of the Camaros in soon to get some stuff done to it. And hopefully some stuff on the 72 there. On the 72 C10, gap fitment will be next on the panels, and I think I'm gonna order the fuel cell for it. All aluminum fuel tank that uses a GM newer drop-in fuel pump module. So it should be a pretty easy install, but I'll get a video on that too, hopefully. And till the next time, please subscribe. I appreciate your views, and have a good night. See you guys.